Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. How are we getting on? Welcome to a brand new camp build. So, in light of our recent playthrough of Red Dead 2 on the channel, I thought it would be a good time to do an Old West themed camp build. So, let's jump in. Okay, so yeah, it seemed like a good time to do this, as I've been wanting to do an Old West build for a while. We're not really going to be able to do a full street or anything like that because of the space and resources we have available, but we can kind of do a section of it, and I'll throw up a picture from Valentine in Red Dead, which is basically my inspiration. But before we dive in any further, let's have a look at where we are on the map. So, down here in the Ash Heap. This is probably the best region for that sepia kind of vibe for a spaghetti western, Old West kind of town. See the little road we're on right there? I'm just indicating we're actually on that side of it over there to the left. But this spot is where I built a little while ago. I did a garage type build here like some time back, and it's a nice flat spot beside the road and it works quite nicely. So I thought it would be a good place for a kind of Old West street, or at least a section of one. So, let's have a look at this build. Okay, so yeah, I've got a couple of foundations in already, just to kind of get the heights sort of vaguely started. I'm actually going to make some adjustments later, but isn't that always the way? So we're going for 2 buildings here. Unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to do much more than that, and budgetary limitations being what they are, I couldn't really go quite as far as I wanted to with this, but it came out okay. So we're going to have a saloon here on the left and a general store on the right. So, a little bit of an issue with the rock clipping through the foundation there. We'll have to lift this up a little bit. I'm actually going to lift the whole thing up later on during the decoration phase, the whole structure, but for now, we'll just bump this up a little bit so we clear those rocks. If you're wondering how I moved foundations up like that, there is a video on how to do that. I will link it somewhere around, so if you want a little guide on that, you can. So bump these up a little bit, that should be about right. I'm going to take this front row of foundations off and replace them with a porch in just a moment, but I think this needs to go a little bit further back in that back left corner, just so we've got somewhere to put stairs in. I'll whip those off for now. Just over in that back left corner there, we'll fit the stairs in nicely so that they're not in the middle of the bar and the bar's got a little more room. And it works around the fact that that particular rock sticks up by an absurd amount as well. So not a big space this, but it works well enough for what we've got in mind. So over here we're going to do structure number 2, which will be our general store. And this one is going to be a 3x3, including the porches. It'll be a 2x3 for the interior space. I would have gone a little further back maybe, but the cliff edge there creates a slight issue, so it's fine. We don't really want them to be exactly the same size anyway. I would have liked them to be different widths as well, but it wasn't really practical with the space and proportions and stuff and fallout and all that stuff, so... Right, let's put a porch on the front. For now, we're just going to use the Haunted House set. I'm actually going to play around with these and mix them up and get some contrasts and some different wood textures and colours going on during the decoration phase. But for now, we'll get this in as it'll just sort of allow us to see what we're working with and get a clearer picture of what I'm building here. So throw those on the front. Those definitely need to be lifted up a little bit, or at least this one does. And we'll get some walls in. So for this one, we're going to start with the Haunted House walls as well. Get a couple of windows in on the front there, and a door in the corner, and we'll get some more walls in. So, nice and easy, we'll fly along a little bit here. There we go. And we'll do the next set. Just whip around this layer as well. There we go. And head out front. So we're starting to get a look of the shape of the thing here. We need a tall, flat front surface here, which is pretty much iconic in the Old West kind of street look, so... We'll have to extend that up a little bit in a minute, but we'll get the inside finished off first, I think. Or mostly finished off. So I'm going to use a staircase here with the frame on it, and I ended up sticking with the one with the wire mesh on it, because as you can probably see, none of the others really capture that Old West vibe. The log cabin one's probably the closest, but it's just a bit too clean and bright for the look that I want. So we're going to go with just this plain one here. Well, actually this plain one here. And use the slightly more ornate version of the stairs. It looks a little better. So I want a double-sided wall along the stairs here, just so I can wallpaper the inside of the bar and the inside of the stairwell as well. To do this, there's a bit of a knack to it. You need to get the doorway on first, as you always, to double them up. But you need to have the inner one on first, so the one that's closest to the stairs, so this way round. It needs a little persuasion sometimes, because if you do it the other way round, and start on the outside, they won't go in at all. So just worth bearing in mind. We'll get these upper floors on. He's actually decided to be temperamental when I came to make some adjustments later, and I had to finagle to get the upper floor and the double-sided wall underneath, but we managed in the end. So there we go. Pop through upstairs, start thinking about roofs and things. I'm going to use the abandoned mindset roof because the corrugated metal's just got a bit more of that rustic vibe. I like the look a bit better. And we'll get a nice flat one on here. We're deliberately going across the building here because it'll kind of hide behind the front surface, which will be consistent with the sort of image that we had from Valentine. So there we go. Now I'm going to just make this a little taller and a little flatter at the front. So it's all squared off. Normally I wouldn't. Normally I'd avoid the square look, but it kind of works for this sort of thing. So there we go. Now we just need to plug some holes up at the back. There we go. These triangular pieces, for some reason, have been very temperamental about taking wallpaper recently. It's a bit annoying. Don't know why, but here's what it is. So there we go. I'm actually going to put another wall across the top of the stairs there later on during the decoration phase, but for now, that looks sort of like an Old West town, or the front of an Old West structure. It really needs some lettering and words and stuff printed across the front of it. Unfortunately, we're not going to be able to do that because budget and the available options really don't look right, so we'll have to use our imagination a little bit. And we'll head on and do the general store, which we're going to use the contemporary set for this one just to add a little bit of a different style to it. We'll get these walls in. I'll have to swap the windows out in just a moment. Yeah, I was thinking one of the other good options, potentially, if you want to do an Old West scene, would be to use the pit shelter. It was added a while back. Of course, you're going to run into the same issue I ran in with this build, and that is budgetary limitations, in that you won't be able to build enough. You won't be able to have enough budget left to decorate properly inside of multiple structures, even if you're inside the shelter. Although the scene would kind of work quite well because you'll have the good lighting for it and the streets to follow and stuff. It should work quite well. And of course, it's all flat in there as well, which doesn't hurt. So we'll get some walls in. Now we're on the top floor here. I elected to put the staircase, same staircase again, for the same reasons as the other one, but decided to put it inside the shop this time, and we can kind of work with that. It works better in a shop than it does really in a tavern, I felt. Especially as I want to get big tables in the tavern, and I don't really want to do that at the shop, so it works quite nicely. So let's get these roofs on. I'm going to go with a slightly different profile to the other building, just for a little bit of variety. I do want this to be a little bit taller, though. We're going to try and get it out to roughly the same height as the first building, so we'll use some full-size walls here, and we'll stick the roof on. Same way as we did with the other one. It'll hide behind the front surface, effectively. So that flat one on the middle there. Nice. Now we'll just run outside and have a quick look at this thing. Yeah, we're getting there. I'm going to change the shape of this one a little bit. It still doesn't come out quite the way I wanted it, but it looks a little bit different to the other building and gives the right general vibe. Close enough, as far as we can in Fallout anyway. Which, after all, is not really designed to look like an Old West game. There we go. That looks alright. Slightly different shape. A little bit of a different vibe. I wish the fascia boards, I think they are, the white ones on the top edge of the wall there. I wish we had one of those that was horizontal, but unfortunately we do not. So, a little bit of change is required during the decoration phase, and we will press on. Okay, so here we go. Tour time. A few changes made in the decoration phase. Put a couple of railings on there, you can see, as well as this saloon on the left here. I just lifted the whole structure up a bit because I wanted the walkway, the balcony, porch thing to just be raised up a little bit and give that vibe as per the Valentine picture from earlier. A couple of outhouses outside there just to keep the right sort of style going on. There's internal plumbing not really a thing. I suppose it depends what time period and how wealthy and how well established the town is, really, but still, it works. So the biggest gripe, really, I had with trying to do an Old West thing, and maybe gripes overstating it a little bit, is that we don't really have the right sort of signs to go on the front of the building. So I've kind of done my best to evoke that a little bit with what we have available. Obviously, I don't have a big stenciled saloon word to put on the front of the the building here or anything like that, or general store or anything. So we got as close as we could with the tools available. Obviously, we've just got the two structures on one side of the street here, which is a very small section of an Old West town, but budgetary limitations. This camp is absolutely up to the limit of the budget, even with only partial decoration, really. So you get the vibe, anyway. So here we go. This is our saloon. I did debate using smaller tables, but the results would have been the tables feeling more cramped, but without actually having enough room to put an extra table in here. Not if you want to move around them anyway, so big tables were the way to go, I think. Little bar area in here. Got the Wildwood Tavern wallpaper on the go here, which suits for a saloon. It's the most appropriate kind of style as well. The others are a bit too clean and modern looking, really, so this was the best fit for numerous reasons. A few bits of decoration out there. I wanted to avoid electricity in this one, so lanterns and candles and stuff. Got our bartender hanging out there. Couple of shelves behind the bar as well. So for that bottom shelf, by the way, I put the initial shelf in there and decorated it and then moved it up a little bit. Then put the second shelf, the lower shelf, on the wall somewhere else. Decorated that whole thing and then moved it into place after I decorated it, which allowed me to make the whole thing sit much more closely. And then we didn't wind up with the decoration items trying to jump to the shelf above either. Worked quite nicely, I think. Needed somewhere to put some steins and stuff for the drinks. Don't really have a whole lot of bar options, really. We don't have pumps or many barrels and stuff that really work for it, but kind of give the impression, at least. Into our little stairwell here. Not a whole lot of decoration in here, because, as I say, you'll see why in a minute, but there was just not enough budget for what I wanted to do, unfortunately. We've got my shelter out there and a shower, because they need to wash somewhere, but the shelter's there just because I'm going to need somewhere to go and use crafting stations, and there's only a couple of crafting stations in this sort of main part of the build, because, well, weapons benches and armor benches, they don't really look like they belong in an Old West tavern or general store, as it will be on the other side in a minute. So we'll have to head to the shelter for that. Yeah, I would have liked to put a bit more stuff out here, but this is what it is with the budget. So the shelter might have worked a little bit better, but I don't have that Pittsburgh shelter. I didn't really feel like picking it up. And, yeah, the limitations, I'd have hit the limitations anyway. I'd have tried to build more, I know. Knowing me, I'd just keep on going. Here we go. Here's our little apartment upstairs over the tavern for the owner. Again, I thought about putting sort of maybe rooms up here, but it's a saloon rather than an inn or a hotel, so it's just a drinking establishment, so the owner has somewhere to live up here. Kitchen works out okay. I used the metal cabinets rather than the wooden countertops, just because I needed fewer of them, and it saved a bit on the budget. But it's a bit open and stuff, but it works. I debated whether or not to put sofas in here, but I decided not to, as they're a bit too modern in style for the Old West, so if they want to sit down and chill, they'll have to sit at the table. There we go. Just enough to kind of get the feeling. But, yeah, we've got to work with the tools that are available. We'll swing back on into the tavern and head on back out to have a look at the general store in a moment. I do wish we had faces that we could put on those mannequins, which I realise would also be creepier in some ways, but for stuff like this, it would be nice if they actually looked a little bit more like people. So as we squint at it, we can pretend they are. On to the next bit. So we've got a set of concrete stairs in between the two sections here, the two porches, because I did want a set of stairs in there so we could transition a bit more easily, but it really needed to be concrete because the wooden ones won't clip through the foundation of the porch, and the concrete ones will. So, it is what it is, as we say. So let's head into the general store, and I think you can see already through the windows exactly why I ran out of budget. I went to town on decorating this place. But it was more about the shop fronts than the living space anyway. I figure the people who own these establishments are focused more on their businesses and making the money rather than the comfort of their living space. Or something like that. So I got a little counter in the middle for the shopkeeper and some fully dressed shelves around here. I did think about using the double-sided ones, but there just wasn't enough space in here really. So a couple of displays and regular shelves. I used the merge glitch to get tons of stuff on these shelves. I used it for the bookcase in the previous living space as well. But I'll throw a link up to my guide on that one if you want a little refresher on how to do that. It's pretty simple. A little bit of eyeballing and practice required, but it comes out quite nicely, I think. And gives that right vibe for a shop. But the upshot of it is that there's a lot of stuff on there that is eating a sizable portion of the budget. The decoration for this shop alone is probably getting on for a quarter to a third of the budget of the entire camp, so hence the problem. But we'll move up to the living space up here, and again, it's more evocative than fully decorated, I think. Give you the impression of a living space. There's one of those corner pieces that didn't want to take wallpaper, helpfully. So we've got a cooking station in there, little dining room. It's basically similar to the place next door, but a little bit simpler because we've got a little bit less space. I used this particular Vault-Tec bed, which is way too clean and modern looking in its veneer, but the other option with any bedding on it would be the darker Vault-Tec one, and that's got a big Vault-Tec logo on the headboard, which in some ways it would have blended in better, in other ways not. So, and the logo itself was just kind of a bit overt for an Old West kind of town. Vault-Tec and Old West don't really go hand in hand, so I elected on the slightly more light-coloured bed, but again, it was making the best of what I got. I could have used one of the ones that doesn't have any bedding on it, but then it wouldn't have any bedding on it, you know? Which wouldn't make a whole lot of sense if somebody's supposed to be living there. As we're kind of leaning away from the post-apocalyptic here, theoretically. I quite like how this place has come out. I like particularly the shop fronts, I suppose you'd call it. The shop floor down here and the front of the tavern, and it gives the right kind of vibe of an Old West town, even if the limitations of the building system are stretched somewhat by the fact that we're not really doing what the system is designed to do here. There we go, put a couple of crops in here and a few extra bits and pieces just to round it out. Bathroom for the sake of the build, crops for the sake of practicality, because I'm probably going to need them. And there we go. So we've got the kind of vibe going on there, but not quite where I wanted it. I don't know, maybe I'll be able to improve on it in a future build or something, or use shelter maybe sometime to kind of work outside of the general snapping and the shape of things a bit more, get a bit more flexible. We'll see. Maybe something to do on down the line in the future. In the meantime, I hope you folks enjoyed this one, found it interesting. I hope you got a couple of ideas as well. If you did like the video, please do drop subs and likes. I very much appreciate all the buttons and links down below. Very much help out as well. And if you get a chance, join us for live streams too. We are now playing Resident Evil 4 as well as 76. So, do join us for that. But for now, thank you very much for watching. I look forward to speaking to you all very, very soon.